Hello guys, it is Ashwin to bring a perspective on a boot that I've long meant to feature and a bootmaker that is among the most well-regarded and long-standing on the Indonesian boot scene. This, my friends, is Sagara Bootmaker, and this is the Sagara Reagent cap-toe service boot built using a Norwegian Storm Welt, local rough out leather, 4 brass eyelets and 4 speed hooks, contrast stitching on the upper, and a Norwegian style Storm Welt. Beautifully done. This shoe has seen several wears, so it's not pristine or brand new, but certainly has seen well done care. I have typically used a suede brush, such as this guy, to do a little bit of cleanup. Pretty straightforward, just kind of brush it out to restore the nap to its natural setting. Very, very well done boot. The leather, as I mentioned, is a local rough out leather. That means it comes from an Indonesian tannery. I'm gonna give you a slightly different view here so you can appreciate different takes on the shoe. The Indonesian rough out was recommended to me by Bagus as being something that would hold up more to general wears than some of their pull-up leathers. Rough outs generally are more favorable, even if coming from lower quality lineages. I chose a contrast off-white stitching for the upper and an antique sole in terms of edge dressing. And you can see the Dr. Sole half sole here. Here's about the wear that you might see in a typical half sole after about 10 wears, 5 to 10 wears. I tend to have a fair bit of heel drag. You can see that the stitching is done very cleanly. Really well done stitching, kind of done with some elegant features that I find to be really pleasant. The shoes were a size 43, which equates to my Brannock 10. Overall, the fit is very comfortable. Arch support is great. The lining is a lambskin leather lining. You can see the contrast, kind of golden brown colored soft lining. It's really comfortable, breathes well. You can see the Sagara logo right there. Is the Sagara logo. And if I come back out, you can see the Norwegian Storm Welt, which I'm going to try to give you a better focus on. There we are. Very well done Storm Welt. Cleanly stitched, elegantly designed. My only criticisms about the shoe is that the toe box for me was ever so slightly tight along my 5th toe. Kind of at the base of my toe, there was a little bit of friction after a long day of wear, which I found to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I imagine that that will even out as the shoes have broken in even more than they currently have. The rough out leather is really well done. It's got a nap that does behave a lot like suede, but it is a rough out. It's a reverse leather, so you're gonna get a nice thicker, thicker quality, higher quality leather. You can see the piping that was applied to the collar as well as the facing here. I like that feature quite a bit. And as I mentioned, I chose a 4-row stitch. Normally this model comes with 3 rows of stitching, but around the time I placed this order, there was another model that featured this 4-row stitch, which I thought was a cool feature. You can see that there is some slight variations in the consistency of the stitch pattern. Just goes to show you that these boots are really made and done by hand. But if you're looking for utter precision like some of the Japanese boot makers, you might not find that as consistent as those makers. But the Norwegian Storm Welt is done very, very well. You can see the welt kind of lifted up with the stitch applied. And you can see that this leather is actually darker than it's going to show up on this based on how the camera is performing. Brass eyelets and brass speed hooks were a nice choice. Antique edge welting is a little bit on the red side, burgundy side, rather than a true antique red-brown. So I would have probably chosen a slightly different color, but really nothing too offensive. The upper contrast stitching was done well. And all in all, just a really pleasant boot. Something that cost me about $300 to $350 when I purchased it. Took about 3 months or so to manufacture, and it was at my doorstep. Also came with a kind note from Bagus, as well as some bags of tea that are amongst his favorite. Really nice little personal touches. One of the longest standing boot makers that's soon to have a brick and mortar presence in the United States in terms of a vendor that's stocking these ready to wear. So wanted to give people a perspective of Sagara's boots. Their most popular model is probably their Cordmaster, which is a lace-to-dough monkey boot style boot. But I wanted to get something that was more in line with a service boot, something that one could compare to, say, Viberg or others. And while this is a different style and different kind of take on the service boot, you could compare apples to apples in some manner. Would I choose these over a Viberg? I probably not, but honestly, it is actually pretty close. And I don't think you would be disappointed in any means if you were used to purchasing Vibergs and chose a Sagara pair instead. So, last take on Sagara Bootmaker's Regent service boot in black rough out with black piping, contrast stitching on the uppers, 4 eyelets and 4 speed hooks, black laces, Norwegian Storm Welt with antique edge dressing on a Dr. Sole half cord, raw cord half sole. Really wonderful boot. See you later, guys. Have a good one.